Hello, this is Lisa Luciardin, the International News of Lisa Luciardin. I want to say that thank you so much for taking this message. I want to say I have an urgent message. We have to stop the vaping. Vaping should be considered an illegal drug. They have found out now in a laboratory, I've already told them before, in 2024, in 2025, I first started in Lago Vista, Texas, to tell them that vaping causes death of the organs. And now they have found it. They verification through a formal laboratory test. I did a laboratory test of everyday life, and it causes death of the organs. We need to have it illegal across all high schools, and it shouldn't be sold in the machines across the world. And I noticed in Europe, they have machines where they sell it in Europe. It has to be cut down and cut off right away. It shouldn't be in the high schools. It should be illegal in the high schools because the teachers are working very hard, for example, on the chalkboard, and then someone could be vaping right there in the room. And over a period of time, it could also hurt the children that are around the person that's vaping. Also, the vaping, it's a chemical inside the vape itself. It's a liquid chemical, and they can put anything in it. And I found that there was a social media saying that they found fentanyl in it. Is that true? I believe it's a new way to bring death upon the people for deglobalization, because China makes it. They make 90% of the vaping. My name is Lisa Luciardin. Please listen. It has to become obsolete and illegal. I have an experience in these understandings of science, of philosophy. I was in the medical business for 20 years, but I'm a politician and a political analyst. And I talked about the microplastics in 2007, and I also talked about in 2011 the biowarfare, the nuclear warfare, the biocell change makeup, and also in 2014 I talked about alternative medicines and pharmaceuticals and toxins in foods for years. Now we need to come together with this, but I am a politician and I look at all different things in a nation on how to find solutions to restore them in justice for the people first, in not rhetoric, but truth by facts. And now we have facts now that in a laboratory test, a formal laboratory test to back up what I tested, Lisa Luciardin, that it does kill the organs. And children and people are coming into the hospitals and having lung problems and shortness of breath and deformity of the lungs. And any disease starts with inflammation of the cell. Okay, any disease or virus. And over a long period of time, we don't know what's going to happen from 5 to 10 years. Obviously, when they tested over a period of time how many years they were vaping, and these individuals have obtained terrible diseases within their organs and lungs. And this is the same thing with the marijuana. And I got in trouble for this, but I also had an experience for testing marijuana. But I'm from California, and it used to be one of the greatest commodities sold, and they made a lot of money on it. The Chinese did. The Chinese in Northern California. Are you listening? In California, in Northern California, the Chinese took over all the marijuana selling, and it's all illegal. So the medicinal marijuana, there's a very small legal medicinal marijuana sold because China took it all over. It's the same thing. And China makes the vaping, 90% of it. But marijuana wasn't made for smoking. It's made to eat or to make an oil. Marijuana is not to make for smoking. It kills the brain. And now, because now it's become legal, okay, but it's not as bad as vaping, but it could be if they put fentanyl in it, because they prepare it and they have to dry it. They could put crystal meth or anything in marijuana, okay? And so marijuana causes, now after the period of time where it's become legal, they've been able to do tests. And now they say, for sure again, it kills the brain. And I already said that. I said that before. And especially for children, the children's brain is not formed yet. So it's going to deform the brain. So we need to make laws and regulations about these drugs, but particularly I believe both should have laws and regulations, but vaping needs to be obsolete and illegal drug. It's a very serious. This is just, it's an analogy where they put the fentanyl in pills and sneak it in, the Chinese. They want to take down the other people in the Christian, in Judeo-Christian nations. And in my prayer and in logic, because remember George Washington prayed and many leaders pray, many leaders of nations, and I consider myself an independent politician. I'm a volunteer actually for President Trump's team and have been for many years, even before he came in. And they use a lot of my things. I'm the one that got Elon Musk in and asked him to come in and gave him the list of things that needed to be done. Obviously, many of the things have been needed to be done for years, but I'm so grateful that we're working on these. But I wanted to say that this is the same analogy that that fentanyl is put in drugs and has killed 78,000 of Americans last year. And when I told that to my friend in EU, in Italy, he stopped for a minute and was quiet because I said, we need to work on this right away. The vaping cannot be legal. It has to be illegal because there's many apartment complexes and all the vape, the smoke is going to go through the vents, okay? And then everyone's going to breathe it, secondary smoke. And many high school kids, they sell it. I heard in Germany from a family member that she wanted me to send all my information that I knew about vaping because I've been talking about this. I was the first lay person that I saw on social media that that talked about this. My name's Lisa Lucci Arden, but I have a pattern where I see things in the beginning before it happens because I'm a science-minded person because I'm not an MD, but I'm a science philosopher, enough units and experience for 3 doctorates. And I'm not bragging. I know very little, but the things I know, I'm responsible. I took an oath when I was a physician assistant to do my best. I took an oath when I had a divinity degree. I took an oath to the responsibility that I have to the American and the people to tell when I see things. But it's common sense, it's logic. I was taught under the Dominican, actually, Dominican upon St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome, that we had to take an oath when we are studying something to do our best as a believer. But they always taught us to question. The Socratic method is to question, not for rhetoric. You have to have facts. This is very serious. It has to be done right away. We need to take care of this right away and stop the vaping right away. And the other news is, I appreciate your time, and we have responsibilities to do this. But I also have news that we are going to take care of also international news. I wrote a book, God First, America a Miracle, and also In God's Power, America Save Our Legacy. They're actually political books. They just have a God title because I believe that God gives us our gifts. But I'm the one that talked about the tariffs and mentioned them. And I showed the services, goods and services, and how America's losing out because of the BRICS. But it's not shown yet. So we have to make a difference. And so I showed that how we can make a difference, how we can solve this problem with EU is that they could buy more oil from us. Okay? They could buy more oil from America. We have the oil, the liquid oil. We don't have the gaseous oil because we don't have the pipes to send it through. We'd have to make tanks. So we transfer the gas oil to liquid. It's called LNG, okay, to liquid, and we put it on boats. Okay, America puts it on boats and gives it to EU. Russia has gaseous oil and they put it through pipes because it's close. But we don't have, even though we have the most gaseous oil, we don't have vessels to bring it yet. So in a lot of cases, the gaseous oil is is less expensive than the liquid oil because they have to transfer it back to the gaseous oil. Sometimes the EU does, depending on what they're going to use it for. So that's how we can solve the EU's problem, because EU. 70% of their products of the EU, the 27 nations, they they 70% of it is products are sold to USA. So we need to, President Trump wants to put tariffs on them because we need the proper fair business to come back to us. So if they buy our oil and agree to buy our oil to supplement that, we could make a deal. And I hope on Monday, Marco comes together, and is Ursula going to be there to come together and make this negotiation? And then also China, it's terrible with China. It's terrible. They said since 2000, China and America, had an addiction to buy all China's goods. And it's terrible because many companies rely on China's goods. And we need to make some type of reconciliation. Otherwise, many businesses will have very terrible faulting problems, not unless they get their product from another country. But do they have time to do that before Christmas? For example, the Christmas trees. For example, the Christmas toys, they show it. That everything's made in China. And usually they order right now for Christmas. And Christmas is the largest time in the season for the gross national product, and especially for China. So we need to realize that China has increased also the tariffs. But President Trump and China need to come to reconciliation. But remember, we can't buy anything, we can't make anything from China and have companies there, and set our companies there. And China has 60%. We buy the manufacturing goods of China, 60% in America, 60%. And they use, their main thing is agriculture. They purchase agriculture from us in different technologies. But remember, we don't have the services anymore of the BRICS. In order, lay people, so you understand, the BRICS is a new group. Brazil and Russia and India and South Africa and 123 nations want to be a part of that to trade oil with their currency. That's good for those smaller countries. They need to make money. But then on the other hand, America spends $680 billion a year. They spend the most money on imports in the whole world because they're the greatest nation in the economy. But in 920 something or $980 billion they got in services but not anymore, because we do not do the services for trading the dollar for selling oil and other commodities, do you understand, and services. So we need to come together. We need to come together in truth and reconciliation. And we will, I believe. But in China, it's a very delicate glove. And we cannot have China with those, they own the land, 300 something thousand acres of land. They will try to monopolize the food and the way it's made and the money. It's a very, very dangerous. They could also bring military tools through the transportation of the agriculture. There's many contradictions in the way they make the foods. We need to come together in truth and reconciliation. And President Trump and the team is doing a beautiful job in following through on all these things. And we have to be careful with Panama, of course. And that's what I said for years. And I was explaining, because I'm a geopolitical specialist. You can look at my book in 2020. I'm a geopolitical specialist, and I talked about China for years. That we need to protect all our waterways, and we need to protect China from the Panama Canal. I haven't talked about that much at all, but Peter here is doing a beautiful job with that. And I said that I want all the waterways protected. And I said that a couple years ago in 2019, but in 2019, and when I brought my book out in 2019, 2020, A Rise to God's Truth. But I've been talking about China for years. And all the list of things you can see in my posting in my book, A Rise to God's Truth. But my new books in 2024 are in God's in God first, America a miracle, and God is justice. And then also in God's power, America save our legacy, because we are a Judeo-Christian nation. And then the divine message for the new problems of the geopolitical problems is that we need, all countries need to protect themselves for safety, but nuclear issues. So what he's supposed to have the meeting today with Iran, that Iran and USA have to make a pact and a peace treaty for the nuclear. They cannot make nuclear because you saw, because I told you Iran is tricky in 2019 and before 2016. You saw the city that they have of missiles. And I keep on telling you, they have enough uranium now to make terrible nuclear warfare and put it on the tip of the missiles, because Russia is having missiles also made in South Africa. Are you listening? And they have that big city of missiles. What are they going to do with that? This is very serious. There needs to be laws and regulations. And I talked about that. It's very serious. And I talked about this too, because Sullivan, under Biden, they gave money back to Iran that they said they owed. That's how Iran began the war with Hamas and developing everything, and they got monies. But they've been making the missiles for a long time. You saw that. This is very serious, and that's why it says I want the dome made. And I wrote a physics chart on where to put all the drones to protect all the incoming tools of perhaps any nuclear or lasers protecting our America. And the dome is a protection to protect the whole America. This is very serious. And we should be very thankful for Bondi and Patel, as I said, for years to protect those borders. I got in trouble. I was living in Santa Barbara at the time, in Montecito area, where they're beautiful people, but there's also elite communists there. And I was killed and come back to life from a car accident. Many car accidents, there's 3. I had many things happen there because I was producing ideas for freedom and facts and solutions. And in 2019, I drew a picture of Jesus and Mary with a Russian hat, just from my heart, from my soul, because the Spirit of the Lord told me there was going to be war. But most politicians that are politicians for freedom of the people, they hear God's voice, but it's not politically correct to say, "Oh, I heard." It's not politically correct. But time is at hand. Just like President Washington. I'm on his side. That's what he said. He said that he had experiences with the God and the Spirit of God. And so we need to come together with truth, just like Martin Luther King and Reagan. Reagan also had many experiences with God. He doesn't always talk about it directly. This has to become to truth, and we need to be careful. But on the other hand, we need to look at these things, and we've gotten ourselves in a situation that, just like President Trump said, Biden hurt us in energy, in immigration borders, in economy. We printed the most money and have the most debt now. We stopped all our energy, so we weren't making any money. We lost all the leases, all the scraps, so 3 different things. We lost so much money, and then we don't have a lot of products where we send out besides services. And we sell a lot of agriculture and other technologies, but President Trump and the team are doing a beautiful job. They're bringing back, as I said, $500 billion of Apple coming to our country, okay? And also Taiwan, $200-300 billion company to build microchips. And then we're having our new autos made in Indiana. So we're going to come together, but we all need to actually pray for these next weeks and months on how we're going to deal with China, because China take 60% of our production. They kill our country of 78,000 people have died in fentanyl. They caused the CCP virus across the nation with Fauci, correct? Was it with Fauci? You look, whatever you believe. With facts, they said facts that kill the people across the world. And China also has offices set up, and they have human trafficking. They have there's 9 billionaire cartels. China's one of the top ones for human trafficking. One of every people get human trafficked. And just like Homan said, Howard Homan is excellent, doing a beautiful job protecting us. And Bondi and Patel showed us, and the beautiful policemen on the protecting the Coast Guards. As I said, I wanted all the waterways protected, and they found $500 million worth of drugs. What were the contraindications? Terrible contraindications for everyone's life. And Howard Homan talked about what the contraindications were and could have been if they didn't catch that. This all needs to be done and taken care of. I really appreciate your time, and I asked to protect all the waterways, all the borders, and borders between states, and all the borders across the nation, and also borders between countries. We need to understand what's going on. I appreciate your time. God bless you. And I pray for Canada. There hasn't been a lot of news for Canada. I haven't seen so much news on Canada. But Canada has issues because there's many things within Canada where they came through the north area when our borders were open. And they also come from the Greenland and also that area where I said from, because China's here, Russia's there, and then across the Northern Ocean, then China, Greenland, and I said they were going through the northern area and bringing trucks and other things and coming down to Canada because they have a port there. They have a port under all cold weather. They still built a port and they're still building it, Russia and China. And so you have China here, then you have Iran and Iraq, and Iran is with China and Russia. Wherever China is, Russia is. Whether Russia is, China is. Wherever Iran is, Russia is. Wherever Iran is, China is. They're together. And then some entities with Africa. And then we have below India. And then we have Africa. And then across the nation, we have the oceans. We have Brazil. And then we have America. And then China is in Honduras. China's in Honduras, and Honduras is right below Mexico. And they used to be able to get through to Mexico to United States when Biden was in. So we need to pray because our country has, they got the severest criminals they could find, which is mandatory. And sometimes there could be mistakes, but they're going to correct the mistakes. But that's what happens when people come illegally, then their own family members, unfortunately, that are same culture, could be in trouble because all these people came illegally. And so that wasn't right. They shouldn't have come in illegally. And all borders in all countries, so it's nuclear and safety, have number one, in borders and traditional values in Judeo-Christian nations. The Christian of the God of Abraham wants to keep the nation strong in the original traditions of countries. And then 3, the self-sufficient nation. And that should be the future for all nations that believe in traditional values under God, instead of being overtaken by another country or another tradition. And that's why I pray for these countries such as UK and Sweden. All these places need to be protected and keep their original tradition. And same thing with America. That's why all borders have to be protected, because many of these people are paid off by billionaires and hierarchy people that are against freedom. But we, America, are following and walking the line to protect America and her future, her past, her initial legacy, her past legacy, her present legacy, her future legacy, and her very distant future legacy. We're coming together to restore all things in America. God bless you. This is Lisa Luciard, and thank you very much. Look me up. It's lisaluciard.com and arrivestogodstruth.com. Thank you.